It's finally time to finish this series once and for all. Resident Evil, the final chapter. Let's go! Hello and welcome to another review here on my channel. We're going to look at Resident Evil, the final chapter. I'm sluttering a lot. I have actually been excited to see the final part of this series. And yeah, this film was originally planned to be filmed back to back with the fifth movie, which was Resident Evil Retribution. They later changed that and they wanted to film them by themselves essentially. And when Retribution was released, they had a big open ending with essentially, what could you say, promising a war of some sort of a final fight. But after they were going to start pre-production, the lead actress Mila Jovovich got pregnant and they delayed the movie essentially. And it was finally released in 2017. Retribution was released in 2012, so it was 5 years wait for this movie, and yeah, let's just leave it at that. Let's just jump right into it. This movie is set some time after the fifth movie essentially, and the fight that were essentially that movie built up to have already happened. And you find Alice coming up from the ground and essentially fighting whatever it is called, a flying weapon or whatever they want to call it, monster. Later finds out by the Red Queen that I can't remember really, but she essentially needs to find an antidote or a cure that exists essentially in this movie, and in order to get it she needs to go to the original Umbrella headquarters, which is the Hive, which was seen in the first movie essentially. And yeah, that is somewhat the storyline. And overall you will also see some returning characters, such as Claire Redfield, I think she's named. She was absent in the fifth movie but returned in this movie, but yeah. We will have a side story with her and a group that she have been helping or being with, essentially trying to help Alice in order to get the antidote or the cure for this, let's say, the virus, the T-virus. Yeah. But we will also see some backstory behind the virus and how it was created, and etc, etc. We also know who essentially created the Red Queen. So, and you will get some backstory and etc, etc, which essentially sets up the final part of this movie, which is in some, if you think about it a little bit, for the most part not interesting if you disregard the previous movies, but anyway. Overall, the storyline, in my opinion, are, if you, as I said, disregard the previous movies, it was decent. But if you take the other movies in consideration, it was not that great. Because it contradicts many things in the previous movies, and overall it was a little bit of a cop-out not getting the build-up from the last movie in this movie, because they contradict even more and essentially disregards everything that essentially was built up in that movie, such as Wesker, or whatever it's called, is a bad guy now, but he was a good guy in the final part of Retribution. And you will also see the Red Queen being a good guy, good person or a program instead of being a bad program or person in the final movie, in the last movie, and it's a lot of things like that that makes the storyline disappointing and not that great when you think about the previous movies essentially. For the most part, the characters consist of Alice, which is the main character, of course. We have Claire Redfield, a doctor, which essentially is the leader of the Umbrella Corporation right now, or the owner, or whatever you want to call it. And some side characters that I can't remember anything about. And the main storyline essentially follows Alice, because she is the main character and she is the one that you should focus on. And you will also find out different things about her that makes it somewhat interesting, but at the same time contradicts a little bit more in the series. But anyway, I think the Doctor character were also decently portrayed, and I think the character was great in this movie, but at the same time, as I said, these characters contradict what happened in previous movies, so it's a lot of that, because if you want to enjoy this movie, you need to disregard, as I said, the previous movies, because a lot of characters in this movie, the characters that you remember contradicts what happened in previous movies, and that it bugs me a lot at the moment, because when I first saw it I was thinking, okay, the characters are great, but after looking at it again, the characters felt a little bit, yeah. Overall, I think the characters are decent, but yeah. The effects in this movie are actually really greatly done, and for the amount of money or the budget they had, they did a great job essentially. I think all of the special effects, just as the monsters, the zombies or the infected versions, are really well animated and we have really well, facial paints and everything like that. And it's really greatly done, as I said. It is good looking for the most part. It is dark and it is brown and grey, but overall I think it is interesting to see the world after it being destroyed and how people essentially live there and how they interact against the monsters when it comes to action and gun shoots and the different cities, how they look in this universe. It just looks interesting, and they did a great job for the amount of money they essentially had. It was 40 million US dollars, and they did a great job in my opinion, so big plus for that. As I said previously, if you disregard the previous movies, you will probably like this movie a lot more, but because they exist, I need to compare them a little bit. They somewhat keep a red line from the previous movies in that they have Alice actually being alive, and they had the war actually happening for the previous movie, etc. etc. You also have characters that have returned, and you will also see some backstory for some different plot points from previous movies happening in this movie. But they also changed some things that previous movies set up, such as the Red Queen essentially. Originally, this is a big spoiler, FYI, in this movie it is essentially Alice as a young girl. In previous movies it was another person's daughter, but they never said that she was Alice, and the Doctor essentially didn't die the way he did in this movie. So they have a connection, but at the same time doesn't. And there's a lot of things that I previously said, and I have said throughout the entire review, many different parts like this. And I think they wanted to make an ending in order to end the series in a good way, but at the same time it just seems that they didn't care about the continuation and the red line that the series had, or were supposed to have anyway. And I'm really disappointed because of that, because even though the ending are decent, overall it was just disappointing to see how they essentially butchered the red line that the series could have had. Resident Evil the final chapter are, as I've said many times, many times, if you disregard the previous movies, it is a decent movie. If you don't do that, you will have a not that great of a movie. Overall, I think the special effects overall is really great, and they did a great job with the amount of money they had. The characters are decent, but at the same time, some of the characters contradicts the previous movies, and it bugs me a little bit because of that. The storyline overall is decent, but at the same time contradicts what happened in previous movies. And this is the same thing that I go back and forth between, because I really like the first 4 movies of the series, believe it or not. They were really great movies for dumb action. I don't really like them because of their deep storyline or anything like that. I just thought the world were interesting, and they also had a great portrayal of the world in an apocalypse, I thought, and they had great action. The 5th movie started to derail the series a lot, in my opinion. It wasn't a bad movie in my opinion, but was not as great as the previous 4. And this one essentially butchered everything that I hoped for the final part. And yeah, overall I would say it is an okay movie to watch if you want dumb action, and if you want a half decent storyline. But as I said many times, disregard the previous movies and you will enjoy this movie a lot more. The final verdict for Resident Evil, the final chapter, are going to be a 3.9 out of 10. That's all for today, folks. Hope to see you next time.